Hello, everyone, and welcome to the soft systems side to sales today. And I have Dr. Future States here with Shay Lynch to my right, or that way. Sorry,
My
that way.
left.
Got it
Sorry.
right. My left and right's all back to front.
Yeah, the other right, Chase.
You get it. You get it. You get what I mean. Today we were talking about planning. Ironically enough, before we got on live, we was actually talking about sports, and we're talking about training because we both run the mountains, but we're also talking about preparation and preparation for racing and preparation for the new season for next year, and all the stuff that we should be starting to plan. Diets and how we eat and how we exercise and how we plan up and towards a race, which is a really good idea actually, because it really brings us into the subject today of planning for 2022. Um, to be effective, more effective in 2022 than you have been in 2021, but also learning from what you did in 2021 and how you can adapt that and get the challenges for the new year. And now is the right time to plan. Don't leave it up to the new year to actually come in on January the 3rd, January the 2nd, or whenever it is, and you go, right, let's plan for the new year. It's too late. It's like that planning, having that New Year's resolution, which never happens. It's like, it's too late. You should have already done that already. You should have been planning that way ahead of time. If you go to retail, they've already planned the January sales, the February sales. They've probably planned Easter already, and they're already buying their stuff. So, Shay, let's throw the question to you. Planning, like this is a big, big subject. So where do we go? Let's have a look at this as the strategy.
Well, Jason, it's such a big question, right? Because when it comes to planning, like I always say, planning is a proactive thing, not a lastminute.com, right? And then before you start planning, you need to have a very good framework of what it is you want to plan,
Yeah.
because you can't, like, people always just launch into, okay, we want more sales, more sales, more sales. That's what every plan
Yeah.
is. But like, yeah, that's all well and good, but what does that actually mean? So in order to get more profits and more sales, what's the framework I'm going to build for that? Like, so for example, what does that mean to my customers? How am I going to get more sales of my customers?
Yeah.
That's one part of the plan. Then the other part of the framework is, what about new customers? What's my plan for that? Okay.
Mm.
And that's all the outside external stuff. But then you have to look inwards as well, Jason. Well, what is it about my process that I can improve on to ensure
Mm.
that my sales cycle sort of reduces, right? And also, how can we improve our operational costs so my cost reduces? Because then by improving your lead times and reducing your cost, your cash flow improves because you get paid quicker because your
Yeah.
time to invoice is quicker. But then your profits increase because it's costing less. But then, so then the other thing is, Jason, what do I want for my team? So there's about 5 things you need to
Yeah.
plan. It's not just about going off into the sunset to a room in a hotel and saying, look, we're going to do 20% more sales next year and let's have a great time. Let's have a few drinks. Let's bond.
Yeah.
That doesn't work, Jason. Like, and
No,
I've
not in
seen this so many
reality.
times. You have to really step back and go, what does your strategy, what do you want to deliver with your strategy? And there are
Yeah.
5 things that I would look at in any strategy.
I think it's also good to have a look at within the strategy. Like we've had a bit of a flaky year, and since last year because of COVID, that wasn't in the strategy. That wasn't in the plans. I think now we have to allow for error, and I think
Mhm.
we should allow 10%, maybe more, because we just don't. It's pretty unstable, the marketplace. So I
Mm.
think we should always allow for that, whatever that error might look like, and always had that 10%. Gabe, let me just have a post that. Appreciate that. I'm already using my outline to put things into action. I've built my
Brilliant.
LinkedIn strategy, content and production strategy for the next 6 months. That's brilliant.
That's
That's
fantastic,
really
Abe. Brilliant.
I love to hear a little bit more about that and hearing your thoughts on that, Gabe, because I think that's awesome. I think that's all part and parcel of the strategy, because you've got to understand your competitive landscape and where you actually are, and how you sit against your how your products actually sit against the competitors, and how you're going to improve what you do and how you sell amongst that. And maybe your pricing strategy, maybe your value proposition needs to slightly change and maneuver for the next 12 months, but we don't know. But I think that's all part and parcel of what's happened last year or
Oh yeah.
2021 with the COVID stuff, because that has really sort of screwed things up, and we've all had to pivot with that. So that has added into, I think we need to be adding that into the plans for 2022. But I think we've learned a lot along the way.
Yeah, well, just to give you a really good hard example of that, Jason, when I had my first business, I thought it was amazing. I did 3 plans, 3 strategies for the coming year. Like, one was like showing profit strategy and what did we need to do, a break even strategy, right? And what would happen there. And then a loss operating, right? But the whole point of doing them 3 scenarios is, how do you protect the business at all costs, right? And I thought it was amazing. I had all angles covered. It. Then the crash of 2008 happened, and the only one I didn't do was the crisis model, right?
Yeah.
Granted, we had a lot of work done, so it did go a long way. But to your point, Jason, we really need to have that crisis mode, that protection mode, to ensure no matter how bad things are, we can protect the business for a period of time to allow for that to ride the storm while it's happening, and that could involve multiple things. So when you're looking at your strategy, even though like they're the 5 things I was talking about, then you have to look at like short term, medium term, long term.
Yeah.
What is that break even stuff? What's that bread and butter stuff that you need to do? It's going to take you X amount of your effort over the next period, and you protect that, Jason. You make sure that cohort is going to stay protected and accounting for the worst case scenarios. But then you have to allow freedom and space to try new things. Because again, new things isn't just about trying new fluffy duffy stuff. It's about, how else can we protect the business? Is there some part of the marketplace we're not covering that we could cover? And let's try and figure that out. So that's another sort of revenue stream. And that's a pilot thing you do on top, not instead of, but on top of that protection mode. So you allow that space.
I was going to say, we spoke a little bit about that last week on the white spacing of existing clients with your products and services, depending on who your clients actually are. Like if it's us two and we're talking about our strategies, we can probably white space that together, saying these are the products that you offer, Shay. Business strategy. I'm making this up, but you know the stuff that you offer. You might have 5 or 6 or 7 things that you offer, and then you have your clients, and then you can maybe expand on certain of your products or your services that you actually have with your existing clients and with your existing client base, and how you can actually work with them to offer them maybe something slightly different, something that you haven't actually thought about before. So that's all part and parcel of that sort of brainstorming ideas about how you can effectively work with your existing client base. But then you have to have that outbound marketing strategy that you have to work with your marketing teams as well, and how you're going to use and utilize that. So let's have a look at blogging. What I was thinking of is, I think we have to start to think about our personal brands within the organization as well, and how we work with the social media, how we show up with that. And because I think that's all part and parcel of what we have to do. I think Gabe has actually suggested his outline. Let's talk about that actually for a second. So a 3-tier outline for each. This includes courses, workshops, coaching content, repurposing, reach development, and community building, business content. Wow, that's a lot.
That's heavy. Fair play, Gabby. And the question I have, like one thing that I always find when I'm building, and you were touching on it there, Jason, is about what's your marketplace telling you, what's your community telling you, Gabby, on this, because like what I was going to say next, which feeds into your Strategy, Gabe, is what is the market intelligence, right?
Mhm.
Like this is something the marketing team should be doing in a business all the time, gathering this intelligence, what's happening next, what are the people saying, what their customers are saying, doing feedback surveys, all those things, so then that should all feed into what you need to do next.
Mm.
Everything is feedback. If you're smart, and we talked about the sales cycle before, Jason, about the
Yeah.
feedback mechanism, and then when you get to sale, the feedback, what are you missing something, and you're only delivering 80% of your customers needs, for example. What about that 20%? What are you going to do to close that so they're not going off to a competitor? So it's
Mm.
all about spending your time in your customers playground so you get that fantastic. And even in retail, what I say to people serving customers in a shop, regardless if somebody buys off you or not, you should be able to, after having a conversation with them, general chit chat, you should be able to walk away with 3 to 5 pieces of information that then you
Yeah.
can put down on your spreadsheet of why they didn't buy off you, what they did like about you. And if you did that for every customer that walked into your door every day of every week of every month, you have amazing data there
Okay.
to
Yeah, you
actually
do.
strategize what to do next. So you're
Yeah.
not finger in the air, like you actually got really hard data to work with that. So Gabby, to go back to you, as you're doing this, keep asking feedback from your
Mm.
community, what they liked, what they didn't like, and that then helps you define what are you going to do next. I hope that makes sense.
I think that's exact. I know when I run courses and workshops, I did a big one last week, but I got some really good feedback, and like really understood I was packing a little bit too much in for a short space of time. But the feedback is really good, and it's so powerful for you to go, okay, this is something I'm going to do something slightly better the next time, and maybe leave some content out, because I love my content, and I think we do. Sometimes less is actually more when you're actually doing and delivering workshops, because you want to make sure that they take some of the core learnings from what you actually are suggesting. So I think that's absolutely powerful. And going back onto what you said about the retail analogy, I was working with a client this week, and they own an online space, but they also own a retail shop. And this is exactly what I suggested. Ask as many customers about what we sell, what do you like about what we sell, and what you don't like about what we sell. What would you like more of? What would you like less of? And
Mm.
wouldn't it be nice to actually being asked if that would work with that upsell, cross sales, and all of that? But it's actually just suggesting that will definitely go with that. I would suggest you to use that, because sometimes being an avid advisor is absolutely key. But that also goes into the strategy for 2022,
Mm.
is helping others to get what they want.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking, included within the strategy that we all have, I think there's also an element of learning in there. I think you've got to take it onto ourselves as an accountability. Whether you're part of a big team or a 1,000 member company or what employee company, I think you should actually go outside and go, this is what I want to do to learn more about my industry, my business. What do I need to do to strategize? How many books am I going to read over the next 12 months, as an example? Because I think
Yeah.
that should be in the mix of what you do.
But it is, but absolutely, Jason, because then when you start building your strategy and you build your vision, then from your vision you build your goals, right? And this is what
Right.
you want to achieve. But that's only the what, Jason. The very next part is the how, right? And
Yeah.
then when you're defining the how, it's a little bit like that. You don't know. You can only base on stuff you've done before. But if you're trying new things, you don't really have an answer. You can only give it your best estimate of what it is you should be doing. But
Mm.
then the whole goal, to your point just there, is feedback. You have to assess. So, say if you're doing a 3 month goal, right, 90 days, and have your targets on a monthly basis to achieve that goal on 90 days, or your first milestone. What do I have to do in the first month, the second month, the third
Mm.
month? And then at the first month, you go, well, am I on track? If I'm not, what do I need to change? And you keep tweaking that, and you try new things. And it does take time, Jason, to find those things that stick with your clients.
Absolutely, it
That's the
does.
bottom line. But you have to keep trying to get it right. But here's the thing. Then at 3 months, that needs to be another big call out time with your SMT, your senior team, or whatever it is, and go, are we on track? Is our goal right? Is our vision right? Do we need to tweak the vision? Is it
Yeah,
telling us the right things? Or is the information that we've collected now? Because here's the thing, you've done 3 months worth of work. You know a lot more.
yeah,
You
yeah.
surely know what doesn't work. So that's off the table. So you're narrowing the field. And the questions are, vision still relevant? Yes. Okay, what do we need to change to make sure our targets get better? If the vision has changed slightly, how do we change our activities? So I
Mm,
call that close the gap planning all the time, Jason. And you do that, iterate, iterate, iterate. You don't just go, okay, we have a 5-year plan now, or like 12-month plan, that's it. Come back to us in 12 months.
yeah,
This is iteration. Things change so much. We cannot depend on stuff working the same all the time. That's like the ostrich syndrome, head in the sand.
yep, yep. And that's definitely not the right thing to do. And unfortunately, there's a lot of companies out there that I know of do have their heads in the sand, and sometimes it's very difficult for them to actually see when there is a problem, there's a challenge, and they do the blame game as opposed to the feedback game and really understand and analyzing what went wrong, what can we do better this time, and as you say, just narrowing the gap until you get better and improve and improve. But it is now, and I think a lot of people should have been strategizing this early November for 2022
Mm.
or even October, because you're giving next year, you're going to give like 500,000 targets or whatever, million or whatever it might be. You need to work out what the end result is going to look like. Count back monthly, weekly. What are your targets going to be looking like? What's the activities going to be? How you're going to do that? What's the market spread? What referrals can you use and utilize from your existing client base if you have a good relationship with your clients? Because that is absolutely key. Then we can talk about how big and how good your relationships actually are with your end clients, because that's all part and parcel of the strategy, because I think that's an important thing to do. And then work on how many calls you're going to make, what the conversions might be like, what the sales cycle might be like, the deal target, the revenue targets, and other key metrics actually within that, because I think that's all extremely important.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Jason. When you plan, so when you start, so the first time you ever do this process that we're describing now, I'll tell you the real benefit, the real value in doing this once. And once you learn that iterative process, you'll never have to strategize sales until the market, say something disrupts, because it's a rolling improvement month on month. So guess what? 12 months down the road, you already know what to do next. You don't need to do this whole process from start to finish again, because you're rolling it. You keep getting that iterative feedback cycle going. The only time you have to re-strategize if there's a bit of disruption, when you've exhausted all those better things, like do things better, then you have to, well, how do we do better things? How can we innovate for our customers? Because you exhaust the current cycle, that could take 2 or 3 years, right? And then you innovate, right? So once you do this process right and embed it in your business, in your sales team, whatever, this will make life so much easier going forward.
Yeah, I totally concur. And I think you do need that space for innovation. You do need that space for going, well, what can we do next? What can we do next? There's got to be other things they can do to utilize the marketplace based on the marketing, based on the research, based on everything else, just to get an improvement. And again, it's pivoting. And I think COVID has taught us some good lessons about pivot quickly, get yourself online, do yourself something slightly different than what you've done before. And change happened very quickly over the last, God knows how many months this year and last year. God, it's gone very quickly, hasn't it? This COVID stuff's lasted for ages. And it's still changing as well. So we have to change as well back to it as well, because we've all been told now that you're not allowed to go to offices now. We have to all work from home. As much as both of us been working from home anyway, so nothing's changed for us. But the other organisations as well, the technology around you has to be adapted with you and for you as well. So, Gabby said, feedback is huge in how I approach reevaluation of my strategy and how to recalibrate my overall direction which is exactly that, really.
Spot on. Yeah, it's absolutely spot on. And like in the beginning, Gabe, you have to do this often. Like, and as you get comfortable, as you find the things that work, then you can sort of step back. Because here's the thing: one of the big things when you're starting a new strategy is all about finding what not to do, not just about what to do. You have to keep testing and trying. You'll get brick walls thrown in your face, or you'll come across all these barriers, and like I like to say, they're not barriers, they're hurdles, right? You have to figure out how to get around them. And that is by changing what you do. The end result doesn't change, or the end goal is just how you get there. So you have to keep trying different angles. Eventually they'll stick. But here's the thing, nobody knows. I can't tell you, Jason, what's going to work for you next year because I don't know. I'll say, Jason, let's build a plan. Let's try. Let's hustle, right? Let's come from many different angles and then decide which are the ones that I'm getting traction on. And you have to go through that pain. There's no other way around it. Sales is hard work. As I keep saying, Jason, sales is the hardest part of business, right? Because you have to go through so much rubbish before you find the value. But that's part and parcel. You have to be prepared for it.
And I think for the likes of ourselves, like we're both solo entrepreneurs, and for us, it's looking at something slightly different that we can maybe get a different approach to reach to our end clients as well. Whether that is using webinars, whether that's using our blogs, whether that's using videos. Your videos are extremely successful. So I've tried videos as well on lots of social platforms, but that's really sort of branding you as being good at what you do and being quite comfortable in that and explaining things, which is also good for your clients to actually see how well you work and how you operate and how you show up. And I think it's all part and parcel of showing up. And then you do webinars, then you do workshops. I know, Shay, you're on one tomorrow, aren't you, with All Ireland Business Summit? And that's the sort of things that shows expertise. And I think that's also in the strategy for 2022. How many workshops and how many webinars can you show up and show your expertise as being credible? Because when you're a salesperson or when you're in sales, it's all about showing how credible you actually should be or actually are in front of your clients and customers.
Absolutely. Sorry, I was just reading Gabe's question there. So do either of you have a recommended resource for anyone seeking to develop a new strategy for the first time? Well, I can tell you my website because I've got lots of information. Even Gabe, look at my profile over the last like 6 to 7 weeks. It's all about strategy, while general strategy, but the same applies for sales. And if you want to get in touch for a quick chat, I'll be happy to point you in the right direction. Absolutely, be a pleasure, So, but the thing is, Jason, sales. And going back to your point, so I'll give you an example of me last year when I was planning last October, November, December, because I had to figure out what did COVID gonna do to me. I'm exposed, you're exposed, you work for yourself. Yeah. So I had to come up with a sort of complementary plan to what I was doing at the moment. And my goal was to do 5 webinars in the first 5 months of the year, right? And I did, and I achieved that. And along with that, like to build up my LinkedIn community, my profile, I went from like less than 1,000 connections to I'm just under 6,000 now, I think it is. And that's not been me having a really aggressive approach. That's just from building a strong community, really good content, and people wanting to connect. It's more inward. I did some outward, don't get me wrong, but inward. But I spent no money on marketing, Jason, and I was getting 30 to 40 people on my calls, on my webinars. And I didn't do it to get business, but I got business out of it. But it wasn't my intention. My intention was to learn the process, right? Yeah. So then when I learned the process, now I know how to scale it, and that would be a part of my strategy for next year.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy to have. I know for me this year, it's all about my connections, but also having good touch points with most of my connections. I've got about 11,000. So I have a strategy on that. So I've also got next year, I've got a strategy of writing a book. It's in my head. I know I've got all the data now that I need to do to produce a book. Now I've got to write the thing, and by June next year, and to do social proof with this and to tell everyone that it's going to happen by next June, because I think that's all part and parcel of a strategy as well. If you say to people that that's going to happen, then you should make sure that it does. And part pushing it out into the social area, that means I've got people like yourself to make me more accountable, but I've also made myself a little bit more accountable by my actions. So there's other things like that, which is making yourself accountable for your plans and for your strategy. Gabriel, I was going to suggest that I think part and parcel of the overall strategy is your business plan. And if, look, I can send you one, and that gives you all the elements of how much money, revenue, and all of that you need to take in. And probably in combination with what Shay has, he's got loads of wonderful stuff on his website. I know I've had a look, and we've had lots of conversations about this. So absolutely, definitely good things to do. So Shay, final points for today.
Final points, right? Build a framework first and foremost, right? Number one. Number two, which you alluded to earlier, Jason, is learn from what you've done over the past. What worked well, what didn't, what do you want to stop doing, start doing, and then continue doing, right? That's really important. And the other thing is, if you're going to put these hard, like, targets on people, don't say, oh, that's what I was told. Lead, build it with them. Look for all the different drivers, which we've talked in a previous conversation. Jason, is not just about knocking on more doors. It's about adding more value, more sales cycles, reducing costs. So many drivers. If you did 5% in 5 different drivers, that's a compounding effect of 60% improvement in target. So it's not just about knocking on more doors. They're the things that I would, and again, as I just emphasized, bring your team with you. Don't just say this and put your head in the sand. Work with them to make it better. And I don't know if that's you frozen, Jason, or is it me? No idea. So if you can hear me, Gabe, if you just send me a message and we'll have a conversation.